Hi, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and also for providing this platform for me to share my story. Hopefully, at the end of this session, everyone who's watching would have learned one or two things from my experience. My name is Yomi, and I'm originally from Nigeria, but based in Canada now. Yeah, I don't know if that part of the introduction is necessary, but anyways, I'll just get right into. I'll just get right into it. So there's a question here that says, when I think about my childhood, what was the what's the first memory that really captures what those days were like for me? So I mean, growing up in Lagos, Nigeria, I would say I grew up then. I think my family, if I would categorize my family then as a middle income, family. Because I mean, if I remember correctly, we were very comfortable growing up. My parents, both of them were entrepreneurs. My dad was into logistics. I was into the business of haulage. So he had his own trucks, and basically what he was doing was operating at Tinkan Island in Apapa. So basically his business was, every time clearing agents cleared containers, they would then hire his trucks to deliver those containers to their destinations. So that was my dad's business at the time. I think he was making some good money. There's some good money in the business of haulage, even up until now, if nothing has changed. And my mother, on the other hand, had and then we used to say shop, but if I look thinking about it now, I think it was more than a shop. Now, if you see all of these, there are a lot of all these mini marts, like springing up in different parts of Lagos now. Thinking about it now, my mom's shop at the time, I think it would really, like, if it was in these times, I think it would be considered to be, one of such, because it was like, fully stocked provisions, food items. When you think about the soft drinks, and I remember correctly that even soft drinks, like, she wasn't selling them. Yes, she was selling as like, oh, like maybe someone wants to buy one, someone wants to buy two, but then I think the money she was making from soft drinks was more from like the wholesale side of things, or is it wholesale or retail now? Because I remember then that the Nigerian bottling company truck would come to deliver in a week. Sometimes like she's getting like 50 crates of soft drinks delivered, and those were selling out really fast because then she already had like a chain of people who were coming to buy from her. Like a lot of them were also then, reselling. Some of them were like food vendors that were, selling soft drinks on the side. Some of them had like, smaller shops that, provision shops and all of those things. So like things were moving really fast. And even then, I remember that my dad also would, go to a shop, but I'll just use shop for the purpose of this interview. I should go to our shop then, because my dad, he had a boss then. I think a Toyota, is it Light Ace? Yeah, I think it's Light Ace, Toyota Light Ace, but I never forget that boss then. But I still remember the plate number, BC710GG. Yeah, my memory is sharp like that. So she would go to, our shop, and then also like, some days like he would take, so my dad would take like crates of, soft drinks, and then take it to Apapa, where was his own place of work. So then where he was operating from, there were lots of food vendors. And then so my dad was also like, helping her sell to them. So it was great. It was, things were like really fine. Like I said, I think it was a middle income. We were very comfortable. As a matter of fact, we went to like the best private schools around, primary schools around like then. So yeah, I think that's like my yeah, that's how I think about it, like in terms of like my childhood. Although it wasn't rosy for the latter part, but I mean, I think I'll get into all of that as as I progress in the in the series. Next question says, were there moments when I felt completely alone or hopeless? And how did I cope during those times? Oh, definitely. Uh, at different points in my life, I felt this way. It wasn't just a particular moment. It has happened at different points in my life. But if I'm to use an example, I probably would say when I gained admission into the university, University of Ilorin at that time. But then my dad's business had if crashed. Yeah, like we say in Nigeria, had crashed. Then so and that was like and then even before that happened, my mom had been diagnosed of a very serious illness. So like she couldn't work anymore. Like she couldn't do anything again. So it was basically like my dad that was like the sole provider. Like that was like the only source of income that was coming to the family, and the business failed. So it was in the middle of that in fact, I remember because I gained admission to the University of Ilorin in 2009. I finished secondary school 2006. So 2007, 2006 I was home. And then because I went to a boarding house, I went to a federal government college. So I guess things had already been bad, but you know, I didn't really know that things had gone that bad until it was time to come back. Because then back in when I was in secondary school, I would come home for holidays. The maximum I stayed home was during the long holidays, which was about 2 months or 3 months. And then after the holidays, I would go back to school. But after finishing secondary school, once you're done with WIEC, it's a long wait when you wait for results, you write jam, and then start trying to get into the university. So I think it was when I finished WIEC and returned home. That was when, because now I was like at home, like almost like permanently. That was when it dawned on me that, oh, things were no longer what they used to be or what I knew them to be. So I remember 2007. Then my dad was already like building a house in Alagbadu. Then then we were living in Agigi. And in 2007, things were really hard. Like it was now starting to like be difficult to pay rent. Then we were living before we moved to Alagbadu. We were living in a two-bedroom apartment in Agigi. Then it had become really difficult for my dad to parent. In fact, I remember vividly, and that's why a lot of times when people make skits and all these skits that we laugh about, these are actually some people's realities. Because then I remember very well because the landlady had shop in front of the house. My dad would ask me or my sister to go and check anytime we wanted to go out to go and check if the landlady had opened that shop. So it's very funny, and a lot of times, like we see these things in skits and we laugh. But the reality is that that is some people's true life story. Anyway, so 2007, we couldn't. My dad couldn't afford it, so and then the house was building had not even gotten to anywhere tangible. The house was building as at March 2007. It had only been roofed, and then there was like burglary proof, and that was it. nothing else. And then my dad comes back home one day, and then he tells like all of us. Like, I will never forget May 5, 2007. That was when we moved to Alabama. Wasn't well, I can't. I knew it was like first week of May. And we were like, well, we're moving to our house tomorrow. And like I was trying to like because before before that incident, a few weeks or like maybe like the previous month, we went to the place together, and like a lot of work still needed to happen. Like I said, it was just like a roof and burglary, and that was it. Because then it was also planting, things on the land. Like so, we went there together to harvest. So there was cassava, there was corn. So we went there to like harvest those things. So that was when I went there with him. And then he comes home on that fateful day, Friday night in me, goes, oh, we're moving to our house tomorrow. And I don't understand. I had lots of questions because even then there was no electricity in the community at the time at the house in Alabama. It was really funny. Like, and interestingly, like the second day we woke up very early. Even the household items, like my dad didn't have money to rent a truck that would pack all of our things and take to the new house. He used this, and then he was driving. I think when things were still good, we moved from like using a bus to bought a Toyota Carina 2. Then I remember I bought a Toyota Carina 2 sometime in 2001. So it was that Toyota Carina 2, and this may sound funny. It was that Toyota Carina 2 that my dad used to move all of every single one of our household items to the house in Alagbado. And I'm sure you probably be wondering that how was that possible? And you probably will be thinking, oh, how did things like the furniture, things like the shelf, things like the mattresses, how did it fit in? Well, what he did was that he put them on top of the car, tied. So he had to like make like different trips, but he made sure to do that very, very early in the morning and then late at night, just to avoid any trouble with the police. So every single one of the items that was moved from that house, my dad moved it with Toyota Carina 2 at the time. That was how bad things were. And I remember I mean, as kids and as we were still growing, and we were upset that what kind of thing is this? Because I mean, we had all of our life we had lived in Agege, made friends, and then all of a sudden you're asking us to go to a community where at the time was probably just like two houses on the street or three houses on the street. There was no electricity. When we got there, if you remember what I said, the window had not been done. It was just like a burglary, but I noticed that they had put like trampoline, like this oh, not trampoline, this cement bag. They had like cut it to just to cover the window, and then they had just like cemented the floor of just two rooms in the house. So one room where my dad and my mom would stay, and then the other room where the remaining of us would stay. The other rooms in the house, well, it's not like it's a big house. It's just a three bedroom. The living room, the kitchen, every other place was not floored, so it was just like mud, like red mud, and that was how we moved to that house. I'll never forget the first night in that house. Mosquitoes. It felt like they came with cutlasses and machetes and all those things. But we slept there. Then I remember my dad lighting a charcoal, something like that. So, anyways, I know I kind of like digressed a little because the question was like, were there moments when I felt completely alone and hopeless. And how did I cope during this time? Yes, and this also was one of them. But particularly when I got into the university, because now I gained admission. Now, this experience that I just recounted was in 2007 when we moved to the house. So I gained admission eventually in 2009 to the University of Ilorin. Things had not changed then. So it was tough because again, like I said, no family income anymore. So I had to like start. My parents were calling. My dad, called. It was more like we were just like begging for money around, to be honest. And I was also doing like a lot of begging. Fun fact: I remember then on Facebook I would send messages to random people on Facebook. This is true life story. I'm not exaggerating. Send messages to people on Facebook and say, hey, then write a long story and maybe I can maybe in the middle of this series, if you want, I can send. I, it's just I'm not sure if I remember my Facebook password anymore. But if I do, I can go in there and scroll down all the way to 2009 when I first gained admission. I was literally sending messages to strangers, people that I've not met, and sharing my life story with them. That hey, this is it. I want to go to school. I want to be educated about my right now, and you know, it's funny, and that's why even now when people share stories online, yes, I know a lot of times people will say, "Oh, people are just like doing corporate begging now," but a part of me, anyways, that's not that's not the essence. So yeah, so that was a time where I felt like really hopeless. I felt completely alone, and that wasn't the first time, and it wasn't the last time that I felt that way. And how did I cope during those times? I think one thing I'm blessed with is the gift of good people, I'm very intentional about saying the gift of good people. That good there is key, not just the gift of people, the gift of good. Back in the university, I you know friends like you made friends, and then I had a very good friend. His name Chukuma. He's based in the UK now. I don't know if he ever gets to watch it. Thank you, Chukuma, for all you did for me. It's a debt that I still need to repay. Then Chukuma would like he understood what things were like, how things were going for me. So every time he called, he would call me like, "Hey, Badudu, call me Badudu, Badudu, yeah, I'll come and eat." And he's an Igbo guy, but he grew up in Kwara State, so he speaks Yoruba like he speaks Yoruba even better than some people that are like born Yoruba. Okay, but how to do our journal, so all those things. And then sometimes when we needed to like purchase and out, like it would help me with that. Then I also had a female friend, but when I had a girlfriend back then, and it's funny because you that I was still struggling, and then I was still having a girlfriend, but it wasn't like that where she was. I got she was that moment. I met her in 100 level, and we're still friends even up until now. Matter of fact, we met up recently. Both of us have our own families now. She has a very beautiful family. I also have my family now. We're still in touch. But she was my girlfriend back in school. And every time she got money, pocket money from back home, then like I remember a lot of times where she would withdraw money and then just like, get some cash, squeeze into my hand and just like, you just hold this one. So how's how I was able to cope during those times. And the thing is, these people that I was depending on to at the time, they also had times when they were also struggling. And so during those times that they were struggling, like things were really, really bad for for me then because again, I wouldn't want to bother people who are also going through their own stuff. So, but anyways, that was how I was able to just like manage and cope with that. Well, a few times from home to maybe like someone gave my parents, maybe my dad or mom, like money, then like they saying like 2K, like 5K, and all those things. Yeah, so that was how I was just able to cope during this time. So what was the question that says what was the hard part of growing up in those circumstances that people might not fully understand? So one thing is people and the way my dad is, which I actually think like that was like one of the biggest mistakes he made, was that when things were in abundance, he he was known to be, if back home we would call him Father Christmas. Like there's no way if you came to my house on Sundays, if you came to our house on Sundays, like we were always having one, 2 or 3 visitors every Sunday. And there was no way anyone coming to the house would go back empty handed. So my dad was like anybody that was coming to him, he was always that there was nothing like, oh, can afford this right now. Also I've also planned for this money. Like he was like that. So just all you needed to do was just make the request. Even if it wasn't comfortable for him, he would still go ahead to do it. So when that happened and when things changed, and then I was in the university, and then my sister was in the university too, and people still kind of like they were struggling with, because again people already had like a perception of, by my dad's nickname, one of his nicknames even up until now is Babalai. Yeah, like that's like his like nickname Babalai. Like that's that tells you the kind of person that my dad was. Like he's the any social gathering, then like if there were like two, three influential people or two, three big men in there, he definitely was one of those two or three people. So it was that kind of person. So when things changed and he started like reaching out to people, people could not really connect. Like it was very hard for them to understand that. But I mean, you're saying that yes, things happen, situations happen to every one of us. Or two of your kids are in the university, you are living in your own house, you know, and then but yeah, here you're telling us that so it was really difficult. People could not like relate, they could not connect to it. So it was just anyways. So that's one part that people really found hard to understand. And this other question, did I have dreams then that felt impossible? And how did these dreams evolve as I grew up? Uh, I mean, I definitely had dreams, but I remember that in my dream I was just like, you know what? I just want to make money. Like I just want to, because again I'd seen the trajectory like of how my dad went from high to low, and but then I would say, oh, man, I just want to like get a good grade, get a good job, make my own money. And at different points in the university, that kind of felt impossible, because at different points it felt like I was going to have to drop out or defer my academic session at a particular time. So at that point, those points really felt like, and is this thing going to fly? Is it not going to fly? But every time those happen, I just think about the situation back home, like, man, I need to keep pushing. I need to keep. And then I was just telling myself that, man, I did. And this is funny, because then every time I was praying that I got this, change the story of this family now. praying that God should please change the story of his family, and nothing was changing, to be honest. And at some point, I stopped that prayer, and I started like praying that God like change my own story. Genuinely, I stopped that prayer, and then I started asking God to change my own story. And because the way I started thinking about it is that, well, maybe God just, maybe God just wants to use me to elevate this family. No, so yeah, I definitely had dreams, and graduating, all of those felt like really impossible at the time. But then as I continued to like, I mean, finished 100 level, 200 level, like yeah, finished 200 level, well, I can still go for 300 level. Yeah, so just keep pushing, keep going. And that was how I was able to just like, yeah, I just started like becoming, I used to be like very pessimistic. I used to really think that things would just like continue to be bad. Then down the line, I just like started like, speaking positive things to myself. And basically that was how, I kept evolving as I continued to go through that, transition. Because it was a transition. So and I say transition because these experiences actually like, shaped me into who I am today and how I see things and my perspective about life, about people, about different things. And so the next question says, looking back now, do I think that my struggles gave me the kind of strength or drive that I couldn't have gotten any other way? Oh, 100%, absolutely. I mean, I saw how things were. Like on some days, like we, and I'm not even exaggerating. Like back home, like on some days they would go a whole day without food. Yeah, I'm genuinely serious that they would go a whole day without food. There's a funny story that my mom shared with me. I was like, there was one time that my brother was so hungry, and then there was like this oats, like Quaker oats back home, like was very tiny that was left in the house. There was nothing, there was no then with gas, no gas cookers everywhere. I think they were using stove and kerosene stove back then. There was no kerosene, there was nothing. And then my mom said that my brother went to get that, little oats that was remaining, and then he started chewing it. And when he was done chewing it, like he drank water. Like he was that he was like, he was that bad. So I mean, I think about like so those experiences, and then as I was going through what I was also going through, I kept telling myself that I did not like failure was not an option. Like actually, I needed to, yes, not by hook or by crook, because I said I was willing to do everything possible to make like to to break free from this whole this whole thing. So I think every time I thought about what was happening back home, that kind of like just like renewed my strength. It gave me that first then that extra ginger. Let me use that word, that extra ginger. That I was like, hey, bros, do you know what's going on back home? Like, do you want to continue in that cycle, or do you want to change things, and do you want to do well and do better for yourself down the line? So yeah, I think that kind of like gave me, because I mean for some people we've had people where like this impacted them negatively, but in my case I was able to shut out that negative energy, and then I was able to just like focus on just drawing strength from those situations and saying, you know what, regardless, I am going to make it. There's a saying in the part of in the part of Nigeria that I'm from. Say, Elede Adoyo, Ariwo Eluma. So like, yes, it might take some time. It's going to take a lot of work. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a journey filled with tears, filled with sadness, filled with disappointment. But there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel.